So if I live in the house, it's a liability, because even if I have no debt on it, I still have taxes, depreciation, repairs, and upkeep, insurance, and all this. And what makes it good debt are the two most important words. Good debt, what? What are some of your questions when people say get out of debt? What comes to your mind?
When people say get out of debt, I think about credit card debt, the student loan debt, all that negative debt that people use for shopping and personal things. And is your idea of debt good or bad? I have a very negative idea or connotation towards debt, and that's because that's what we were taught in the school system, in the traditional education system, that it's not so great.
Debt is a four-letter word for most people. There are many people in my position, so-called financial gurus, who say live totally debt-free. And there's other people who say cut up your credit cards. And that's good advice for certain types of people. You should definitely cut up your credit cards if you can't control your spending. But you should cut up your credit cards if you're a shopaholic. That's good advice. The other thing about debt, there's good debt and bad debt. So this is going to be the lesson today, is there's good debt and bad debt. I classify student loan debt as bad debt, the worst possible type of debt. You see, if I get into trouble as a businessman with debt, I can declare bankruptcy and I'm clean. But the trouble with student loan debt, you can't do that. It hangs around your neck for the rest of your life. So if you're a student, you shouldn't take on student loan debt unless you absolutely 100% guaranteed that you will commit to graduating. Have you seen a lot of kids drop out of school? The problem with student loan debt is a person has to know what are they going to study. I have two friends, they're both medical doctors, and they came out of school with $500,000 in medical debt, in student loan debt, but they paid it off in 5 years because they're medical doctors. They had high paying jobs. And so they delayed having families and all this, and the whole objective was to pay for becoming a doctor. But I think you have friends who have no idea what they're going to school for. So as far as the subject of debt, there's good debt and bad debt. Again, it goes back to the financial statement, income, expense, asset, liability. So debt falls in here. Let's say I'm going to buy, everybody says I'm going to buy a house. And everybody says my house is an asset. That's not true. Your house is a liability. I don't care if you have no debt on it or not. A house is a liability. Same as if you have a car. A car is a liability. And the reason for that is, as we talked about earlier, the 6 words that are basics of financial education, financial intelligence: income, expense, asset, liability. And the 2 other words are cash flow. So when you look at the average person, they have a job, money comes in here, they pay for their house, and the money goes to a bank through a mortgage. So it's not an asset because the cash is flowing out, so it's a liability. So the definition of liability, does it take money from your pocket? And for an asset, does it put money in your pocket? So when I have a rental property here, it puts money in my pocket. So if I live in the house, it's a liability, because even if I have no debt on it, I still have taxes, depreciation, repairs, and upkeep, insurance, and all this. When I rent a property, I've done a good job buying it and structuring it. Every month it sends me money. So I started off when I was 25. I had a little 1-bedroom condo, and it put $25 in my pocket. It was a start. This was good debt. You see, the debt also went out and paid, but it also put $25 in my pocket. So net, I was making money from my little house. So today, my wife and I own 6,500 of them. And every month, 6,500 houses put money in my pocket. My people who live in them love me and all this because they have a place to live. But all of this comes from debt. They're 100% finance here. It's all debt. So this is good debt. And what makes it good debt are the two most important words, cash flow. So what most people do is they have student loan debt, SL, and that debt is going out this way. It doesn't put any money in your pocket. You can say, well, I have a job. Well, that's still you working for it. So I don't work for any of this money here. I do this job once, set the deal up. Every year I add more and more and more of it. I'm borrowing money from here. It's coming here and going this way. So the debt is putting money in my pocket. Bad debt is taking money from my pocket. The problem is, if you're going to use debt, you've got to be much smarter than this person here. You've got to be very, very smart. That's why I took real estate classes when I was 25, and I've never stopped taking real estate classes. Because you buy a piece of real estate and you make a mistake, this turns into a liability. If the renter leaves the place, this goes here that fast. And the cash flows that way. Okay, it's going out of my pocket. So it has nothing to do with real estate, it has nothing to do with the car, nothing to do with student loan. It has to do with these two words here. So good debt, again, is debt when I borrow for this and it puts money in my pocket. If I had a car and I borrowed money from it and somebody rented from me as an Uber driver or something and it put money in my pocket, it would be an asset. My wife and I have a boat, and most boats lose money, but our boat makes money because it's in a charter. People rent my boat all the time. So it has nothing to do whether it's a boat, student loan debt, a house, a car, or whatever. It has to do with these two words here. And so most of the time, you've had accounting classes. They don't talk much about this, do they? A big lesson for you is that it's nothing to do with the house, the car, the student loan. It has to do with where's the cash flowing. If the cash is flowing into your income statement, into your pocket, it's an asset. It's good debt. But if it's taking money from your pocket, it's bad debt. About debt, there's good debt and bad debt.
I think just like Trump, you know how to apply the rules of debt, and he calls himself the king of debt, right?
If you're going to be successful, like whether you're an employee or entrepreneur, you've got to control the direction of your cash flow. So you look at most people here, we've talked about it earlier, they get a job and the cash flows out here, goes to the government. Called taxes. Trump doesn't do this, I don't do this legally. The reason is because we're entrepreneurs, not employees. Employees have this, entrepreneurs don't, because it's a type of asset. So what would you like to say to the young millennials listening to this?
I'd say don't be afraid of debt. And if you know how to use it, use it.
Good debt puts
money in your pocket.
Could a credit card be good debt?
Well, it just depends what you spend the money on, right? So if you spent it on something that's going to produce income for you, like an asset, then it's good debt. But if you spend it on, let's say, a jacket that you wanted from Burberry, then it's not.
First property there, it was in Maui, Hawaii in the 1970s. I bought it with a credit card.
Wow.
Property was $18,000, my first, but I've taken several real estate classes. And so I knew what to look for. I found this one property. It took a long time. When I found it, I just broke out my credit card and bought it, and it put $25 in my pocket. It went from this little dinky little thing, this is years ago, $25. It was good debt. I wish I never sold it. It was a big mistake to sell it, because today it's probably worth $400,000 or $500,000. That's a whole nother story. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't flip properties. I don't like to do that stuff. So anything else? So good debt, what?
Money in your pocket.
And bad debt, what?
Takes money out of your pocket.
That's all there is.
Yeah.